I, Monal Williams, do solemnly affirm that I will faithfully bear true allegiance to the Commonwealth of Dominica according to law.
Obituary and congratulatory remarks.
Okay, for the sake of tidiness, I'm going to do the obituary first, and I would call on members who wish to, two members on either side, who wish to speak in the memory of our former speaker who passed away. Two members on either side, please, very brief. Brief means 2 minutes at least, no more than 2 minutes, eh?
Madam Speaker, I wish to extend condolences to the family of Mrs. Mary Davis Pier, former Speaker of the House of Assembly of Dominica, and who has left us in her writings very, very important guidelines as to how our parliament should be conducted. Mrs. Pier served with distinction and honor in this house. She brought decorum, she was firm, she was fair. Mrs. Pier hails from the Roseau Central constituency, Cork Street. She was a lady, along with her siblings, who were devout Catholics, and very often we met each other in church and in the city. I also wish to take the opportunity, Madam Speaker, to convey deepest condolences to the family of the late Senator Meshach Linton, whose wife, Mrs. Rachel Linton, passed away recently. Mrs. Rachel Linton, I honor her as one of my school teachers in primary school who made an indelible mark on my life up to this day. I still refer to her as Teacher Rachel for what she stood for the values of honesty and integrity and fair play which she insisted on in her class, and which even in the community of Marigot she always tried to instill in the young people around her. Mrs. Rachel Linton is the mother of our political leader of the United Workers' Party, Mr. Lennox Linton. I extend my condolences especially to him and to all the siblings. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Any other member on the opposition side?
Madam Speaker, I rise to extend condolences to the family of our late Speaker, Mrs. Mary Davis Pier. Madam Speaker, I did not have the privilege of serving while she was at the helm of the Parliament as the Speaker, but I did in fact follow the Parliament in those days very diligently. And I will say that she did not have to deal with what you have had to deal with in this Parliament over the last several years. I mean, at that time, Madam Speaker, there was the Freedom Party in government and the Labour Party in opposition, and there were one or two independents who were associated with the Freedom Party at the time. So essentially, there were two parties in the Parliament. And comrade, this is Mike Douglas came here and fought the government at the time, but debated ideas, debated policies, debated programs, and presented a very clear alternative to the Freedom Party at the time. And he stood there in Parliament for several hours speaking on behalf of a very large cross-section of the population of Dominica. Having become Prime Minister, Madam Speaker, I had the occasion to speak with Mrs. Pier from time to time, and she would also give me some guidance, some ideas, based on her own experience here in the Parliament and in the country. So I really valued those telephone and personal conversations with Mrs. Pier, and those will remain with me for a very long time. So once again, on behalf of the government and of course the entire country, as we have done before, I wish to extend condolences to the family of the late Madam Speaker, Mrs. Maiden.
Can we have two members from either side, the Senator, so that we can, under our third agenda, move forward?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of the official opposition and also the people of the Salisbury, Kudibishri, and Monmouth constituency to extend congratulations to Senator Dominica.
Order.
After Senator Isidore made his contribution, and we know that he made a very meaningful contribution in Parliament, so we'd like to extend best wishes to him. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on behalf of the people of the Margaret constituency, I too would like to add my words of congratulations and welcome to Senator Monel Williams. Senator Monel Williams is entering Parliament as the parliamentary representative for the Margaret constituency is exiting Parliament. And I'm doing it along with the parliamentary representative for the Wesley constituency, who is also exiting Parliament. As the longest serving elected member of this Parliament, I feel I'm in a position to offer advice, to caution, and to admonish our new senator. This is the highest court in the land, highest court in Dominica. And later on, we will be deliberating on the highest court of Dominica, the CCJ. And people will have an opportunity to assess the extent to which we are indeed honorable. There are rules in this House. I would urge you, Senator Monel Williams, to be familiar with the rules. I'm sure the Honorable Speaker will add her voice to mine in that respect. There are written rules, though, and they are applied rules. Sometimes they don't always coincide. Madam Speaker. And it's a challenge. It will present a challenge to you. This House, let me say, Senator Monel Williams, that your youthfulness, the fact that you're a woman, will pose challenges to you. Do not always expect the full protection that you might seek. And I say that because the young parliamentarian at the time, Honorable Earl Williams, when he sought protection, was told, I'm letting you get a taste of your own medicine. The female parliamentarian, when told that she was going to be given a few more minutes to confuse herself, did not get the protection that she sought. Senator Monel Williams, this is not an easy House. You might be seen as meat to be eaten. You might say, well, you see no lions in this House, but I want to warn you, they are Rottweilers. But I'm sure, Senator Monel Williams, that you can rise and you will rise. You can rise and you will rise.
I'm going to ask the member to wind up.
Wind up, yes.
3 minutes.
Yeah. You can rise. You can rise and you will rise to any challenge that you face. Remember, there was a time when the sky was the limit, but now there are footprints on the moon. And I want to tell you that change
Can you make this your last sentence, please? We have to move on.
Change will come, and you will be part of that change. And let me just take the opportunity quickly to welcome the new clerks of the House and to say temporary farewell to the former clerk, probably who's on leave, Mrs. Raymond, and the person who acted for her when she was away in the past, Ms. Roseau. Thank you very much and welcome, Senator Monel.
Madam Speaker, I rise to offer my congratulations to Senator Williams. To Senator Williams, Madam Speaker. And I know that her age has been touted and so on, 28 years old, but I came to the Parliament about 26, 27 as an elected member of Parliament representing the Vickers constituency. And we inherited a country at the time in serious financial and economic problems. And we spent years there in Parliament fixing the economy of the country. So if you are looking for guidance and leadership, you look to us. You look to us. Because I would have thought, Madam Speaker, and of course Senator Williams, and I sympathize with you, that at a time like this, your political leader would be present to urge you along, to congratulate you, to give you this moral support, because you're coming into the Parliament for your first time. But we're not surprised by this, Madam Speaker, because your party in the Parliament has had a record of giving very little regard to women in particular. And I have sat there, Madam Speaker, in pain, Madam Speaker, to see how the opposition, the European, has treated young women. Young women. Whether it's Doreen Paul, Madam Speaker, whether it's Senator Blanchard, Madam Speaker, my cousin from Baker, Sabina Williams, Madam Speaker, I cried. My heart ached, Madam Speaker, to see the way that they have treated the women in this Parliament.
Can the members be silent, please? Can we show the new senator how things ought to be?
You see, so Madam Speaker, if she wants to make, and the senator wants to make a positive contribution there, she must look to this government side, to the Labour Party. And I see, Madam Speaker, that this Parliament, Madam Speaker, well, first of all, is not a place you can come to read. You must speak on your feet. So you can't read a script. You have to stand on your feet and speak up from your mind. So the preparation is important. Reading what somebody has prepared for you is another thing, or reading what you prepared for yourself is another thing. But coming here to speak on your feet is another matter. So if you want to speak, you first have to seek the authorization of the speaker to read. So that I'm not sure whether they gave you any orientation. But we do give orientation to new members within the Labour Party here. So we don't just send you ill-prepared or unprepared. So you come in, Madam Speaker, Senator, to this Parliament. This is a fiery place. It is also a wonderful place to work from. But I want to give you one piece of advice, because I have heard from your former workplace you were less than diligent in terms of attendance at work. So the Parliament, you must come to the Parliament. You must come to the Parliament on time.
One moment, please. Did you hear? Did you hear what the senator was saying about the speaker? I did not hear you protest. I wish to see a level of consistency. Will you take your seat, please? Can you take your seat a moment, please? I just want to let the members know that there needs to be a level of understanding and consistency in what members say. When the member from Marigot was speaking, I heard him say things about me, and he should know what he said about me. And yet this member for Roseau is objecting so strenuously about something which was in the media, in the news, and was bandied about one everywhere. So I don't understand why you members, don't just decide, I'm either going to keep quiet about something or I'm going to do it on the right and the left. Please, can we have a little consistency? And I'm warning the member for Roseau, please, can I beg of you, as a Christian, to be on your best behavior? That did not call for a response. Take your seat. Please take your seat. I am begging. Excuse me. Please take your seat. Lack of consistency again. There were you asking for money for it. You don't want it brought. You know, this is lack of consistency. You must learn to take what you give. Please, take your seat, member. Take your seat. Take your seat. Okay, one sentence, or please, you can put as many commas as you want, but one sentence, please.
Madam Speaker, I heard the senator say in the public that she came to work late, a few seconds, a few minutes late, and on that basis they fired her. That's what I heard she said in the news. I am simply saying, Madam Speaker, that we must treat the House with respect by coming to the House when the House is called and by coming to the House on time. What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? What is wrong with saying about productivity, Madam Speaker? If you have a parliament, you have to come to the parliament. You cannot be out there when parliament is going on. What is wrong with that? I find, Madam Speaker, that they've taken some objection to this statement. But, Madam Speaker, I know the young lady knows what I'm talking about. She knows the facts, and I'm sure she will look to the leader of this House for guidance and counsel. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Can we have some order, please? Why are the members behaving like that? We have 3 precious little children looking and seeing what is going on in the house. Can we just behave well just for them? I'm begging. Can the senator speak, please?
Madam Speaker, in a much calmer demeanor, I would like to congratulate Senator Williams for taking the bold step to become a part of the Senate and join the Parliament of the Commonwealth of Dominica. Since the last election, I've served as the only female senator in the Parliament, and so I'm very happy that today the opposition has taken the opportunity to bring a female member to their Senate. And so, Senator Williams, I congratulate you. I would also like to say to the senator that she's parliamentarian and most female parliamentarian, the public scrutiny is going to be heightened. And we know that as females, the yardstick that's used to judge our behavior is different from that of the men. So I would like to encourage Senator Williams to conduct herself both in and outside of the Parliament with the highest level of dignity and respect at all times. And she being a part of the Parliament, Madam Speaker, has brought us one step closer to our goal of having at least 33% female representation in the Parliament. So again, for that move, I thank her. I would also like to say to Senator Williams that while we may be on opposing sides of the political divide, when the government proposes something and it is good, she should not just rise to make contributions that are opposing, but when it is good, take the opportunity to say that it is good. So once again, congratulations and welcome to the Parliament of Dominica. Thank you.
Before the senator replies, may I add my sentiments to those. Everybody knows that I want to see more women in Parliament. So therefore, it stands to reason that I'm happy that you are here and I welcome you wholeheartedly. The leader of the opposition made a statement though. He says something about gender balance. We are nowhere near gender balance. Gender balance means that you have 21 members. If you have 11 and 10, members, men and women, that is when we are gender balance. We are not even near to our Millennium Development Goals. But I'm happy that Senator Williams is here, and I want to tell her, Senator Williams, you have a new prayer book. I just want to show you what your new prayer book looks like. You have to ask God permission to allow you to use that as prayer book number 2. Because it is in this little book of standing orders that you're going to make yourself an effective person in the Parliament. You're going to have to stand by the rules. the rules are very important. Contrary to the powers that have been assigned to me, my powers lie within the rules, okay? Among the powers given to me is to interpret the rules. Now that is where things get a little sticky, because certain members feel that they have the wherewithal more than I have to interpret rules. But you see, your humble servant here knows that all knowledge does not reside in the same head, and therefore I consult far and wide when I am having to make decisions. That is why I get concurrence from outside of the parliament. I'm asking you to bear in mind, for example, when we'll be getting down to the business of the meeting and the debate, it is about the CCJ. I'm also speaking to members now and saying to them, this is not the budget debate, it is the CCJ debate. And once again, I welcome you wholeheartedly. You have the floor for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, there's a popular phrase that I always use: for this cause I rise. So today, for this cause I rise. Madam Speaker, it is a pleasure to walk in the hallways and sit in the chairs of great former women like the Honorable, now deceased, Dame Eugenia Charles, Bernice Bellany, Mrs. Doreen Shillingford, and all the members who have served in this honorable house. It is a pleasure to serve in this house as well. I am honored to say, Madam Speaker, I've listened to the House of Parliament, and it's always been something that I wanted to say. So today, I say thank you again, Madam Speaker. To my daughters in the gallery and my mom, my chairman, I want to say thank you so very much for being here to witness this historic day for me. I get the opportunity to speak in the Parliament of Dominica at the highest level of the state, and I will speak. I will make viable contributions to the women of this country. I will make viable contributions to the youth of this country in this house. I will make viable contributions to the St. Joseph constituency, whom I'll serve in Parliament in the upcoming election. I want to say thank you to the Prime Minister and young lady, Senator John Charles, for her congratulatory messages and for her words of warning. Mr. James, thank you. Members of Team Dominica United Workers Party, the Honorable Mr. Lennox Linton, all of you who have given me the opportunity.
You're not yet honorable, not honorable yet.
Mr. Linton, the political leader. I have been given the opportunity to serve in this house. I thank you for that. And Madam Speaker, I hope that everything that I say here and do here will not only be guided by conscience, but by the Almighty God. So I will make contributions. I will be mindful of the Bible of the House of Assembly. And thank you for having me, each and every one of you. It's a pleasure.
Confirmation of minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, 19th March 2014.
Madam Speaker, I move that the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, 19th March 2014 be confirmed as circulated.
Seconded, Madam Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the meeting of Wednesday, 19th March 2014 be confirmed as circulated. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The minutes stand confirmed.
Announcements by Speaker.
I gave part of my announcement already. I'm asking members, please, to adhere to the rules of the House. My duty is to enforce the rules, And my secondary duty is to interpret the rules. That is the mandate that I have, not only from the Constitution, but from the standing orders. I therefore will carry them out, out to the best of my ability. Now, coming into the debate, I wish to remind members that there are certain standing orders that they ought to have regard to when they are debating. For example, if a member wishes to read his speech, he should seek permission from the chair first. The meeting is here mainly to deal with the CCJ, and therefore the debate will be surrounding that. Members, please, I'm asking you, let us concern ourselves strictly with the bill that is before us. You will have sufficient time during the budget to roam as members are wont to do. But you are limited in this meeting to the CCJ. And I'm asking for members' cooperation in that regard.
Presentation of papers.
Madam Speaker, I beg to lay on the table Dominica Broadcasting Corporation financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2012.
Government notices.
Madam Speaker, I beg to give notice that at a later stage of the proceedings, I will be taking the second and the third readings of the bill standing in my name on the other paper.
Statement by ministers.
Statement. Nine.
Second and third readings of bills.
Public business.
Madam Speaker, the idea of our own court was first mooted some 50 years ago. The Caribbean Court of Justice was established in February of 2001 by 10 Caribbean countries, with Dominica and St. Vincent signing on some 2 years later. The agreement came into force on July 23, 2003, and the court was inaugurated on the 16th of April, 2005. To date, Barbados, Belize, Guyana, and Suriname have taken steps to confer jurisdiction on the court in its appellate jurisdiction in order that it may replace the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council as their final court of appeal. For several years, the Caribbean has debated the idea of our regional court, and in 1989, the then leaders of CARICOM firmly committed themselves to the idea, and by 1992, made a firm recommendation supporting the establishment of a regional court of appeal. Madam Speaker, my apologies. Let me just retract a bit and move for the second reading of the bill before I go into the introduction, Madam Speaker.
I beg the second, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I move that the second reading of the bill shortly entitled the Constitution of Dominica Amendment Act 2014.
Seconded, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, with your leave, I may continue. Madam Speaker, members of the public who are concerned about the funding of the court, the quality and the competence of the judges of the court, the independence and its vulnerability to political manipulation, including the security and tenure of its judges. All of those issues have been addressed and adequately catered for in the formulation of the CCJ. The salaries and terms and conditions of service of the judges are not at the mercy of either governments of the region or individual politicians during the term of service of the judges. Madam Speaker, the establishment of the CCJ as our final court of appeal will represent a symbol of our continued effort to assert the independence of the countries of the region and also further strengthen the spirit of Caribbean unity, joining institutions like the ECCB, the University of the West Indies cricket team, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, among others like the regional security systems and other regional institutions, Madam Speaker. 80% of the former colonies of Britain around the world have moved on and have established their own final courts. In fact, Madam Speaker, the Privy Council itself have already indicated its intention to have the Caribbean countries establish their final court. The President of the Privy Council have already said that appeals from the Caribbean should end and that the ultimate court of appeal of any state should be in that state, staffed by citizens of that state and not by outsiders. In its appellate jurisdiction, the Caribbean Court of Justice is required to consider and determine appeals in all matters from the courts of the participating states which have conferred that jurisdiction upon it, and that is namely Belize, Barbados, Guyana, Suriname, and in short order, Dominica. It will therefore function as the final court for the adjudication of matters which originate in the lower court of those states. Although the court has its headquarters in Trinidad, it can operate very much, Madam Speaker, like our Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court does right now. They go from island to island in the chain from Guyana all the way down to the British Virgin Islands, listening to appeals from lower courts. This will make access to our court, our highest court, much easier and cheaper for the ordinary citizens of the community, rather than having to go all the way to England to the Privy Council. We are already paying, Madam Speaker, our yearly contribution towards the operation of the court, as it is the ultimate interpreter of the Treaty of Chagaramas, which govern the rights and obligations of states who participate in the CARICOM single market and economy. We have taken all the preliminary steps to move from the Privy Council to the CCJ. The 90-day interval since the first reading of the bill has elapsed, and the government has written to the British government signaling our intention to delink, and they have indicated their agreement with us so to do. It is now for the bill to be supported by the votes of no less than 3/4 of the elected members of this House. There is no need for a referendum in our Constitution, so after our progress here today, our process here today, Madam Speaker, the bill will be submitted to His Excellency the President for his assent. I now commend the bill to the House.
The bill is now before the House for debate.
Madam Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to this constitutional amendment to the Constitution of Dominica, which seeks to make the Caribbean Court of Justice our final court final court, Madam Speaker. Final Court of Appeal. Madam Speaker, Dominica is supposed to be a democracy, a democratic state. Supposed to be. The pillars of that democracy include the judiciary, so a court system, which we are seeking to amend right now, the parliament, this is where we have come to change this court system, the people, on whose behalf we are seeking to change the court system, and the argument brought by the government is that it will be cheaper. And of course, the media is the fourth pillar of our democracy, because it is indeed one of the most important channels through which the people are informed of the way that our democracy is functioning. Madam Speaker, democracy is government of the people, for the people, and by the people. The essence of democracy, Madam Speaker, is that a government always pays the utmost respect to the people whom it is governing. As such, Madam Speaker, whenever a government seeks to make major radical changes in the rules governing the lifestyle of the people, the government would spend the necessary time and effort to get the people's, first to inform the people properly, and to get their reaction and their response as to whether they would like this radical change in their method of governance. In this particular case, the governance of our justice system, governance and operation of our justice system. Unfortunately, this has not happened. This has not happened. Madam Speaker, as in preparation for coming to Parliament, I asked young people, some of them students of the Dominica State College, what do you know about the CCJ? Response, what is the CCJ? I asked people in the villages, what do you know about the CCJ? Response, what CCJ? I even spoke to a few lawyers about the CCJ, you know. And basically, a few of the lawyers I spoke to said to me, frankly, Mr. Prevost, both us in the legal profession and the government need to do a better job of informing the people of Dominica as to what is the CCJ and what are the implications for us, the citizens of Dominica. That's the honest response. So, Madam Speaker, here we are today in Parliament, radical change in our governance of the justice system. And what it says to me, Madam Speaker, is that that democracy, that freedom which we cherish, which forefathers have fought for, that democracy is crying, that democracy is weeping in Dominica, that democracy is shedding tears. Our democracy is crying out for help. It's crying out for help. Madam Speaker, it is crying out for help because it is at a junction where the government, in moving so radically to try to change the justice system with inadequate consultation of the people, And because it has a 2/3 majority, not even going to a referendum, Madam Speaker, the government is demonstrating scant regard for the democracy that we so cherish. In fact, Madam Speaker, I would even go as far as to say that we are at a stage where we have a government that has behaved very, very anti-democratic in many of its actions. And for example, Madam Speaker, here we are, freedom of the press is one of the fundamental pillars of this democracy, Madam Speaker. We have seen a situation here, we are in a situation where government controls virtually the entire press in Dominica, and where the state media is concerned, Madam Speaker, refuses to allow the opposition fair coverage and fair access to state media, and I'm referring here to DBS Radio and GIS. Madam Speaker, the matter of fair access to the press is something that our courts, our Eastern Caribbean Court of Appeal has ruled on. In the case in Antigua, where they now...
This is exactly what I'm talking about. The member has gone off on a tangent, and I'm asking him to return to the business at hand. We are discussing the merits and the demerits of CCJ entry and all the different implications thereof. You've gone off on a tangent on the fourth estate, the media. This is not about the media, this is about the CCJ. Please come back on track.
With respect to you, Madam Speaker, the court, the Eastern Caribbean Court of Appeal, Madam Speaker, which is one of the institutions that is going to be affected by our movement here to the CCJ. Because indeed, what we are doing, Madam Speaker, is we are changing our court system, our justice system. Madam Speaker, this court has ruled within our jurisdiction, and this has significant implications for our thinking as to what is going to happen to us when we move on the CCJ. So there it is. Our court has ruled that opposition in Parliament are entitled to equal time on state media as government. Antigua government, which is a member of this agreement that is moving us towards the CCJ, has accepted this and has implemented it. In the case of the Dominica government, the government of Dominica has refused to obey the court order to allow the opposition in Dominica equal access to the courts. So it begs the question, Madam Speaker, is this government, Madam Speaker, does this government, Madam Speaker, have the integrity and the credibility to change our court system, Madam Speaker, when in fact the government shows scant respect for the decisions of the existing court, Madam Speaker? That is the question. Does this government have the integrity to change our court system when this same government has such scant respect for the decision of the Eastern Caribbean Court to allow the opposition equal time on state media? Fair question, fair argument, right on point. Madam Speaker, it is impossible to speak to the CCJ without speaking to our democracy, because the CCJ is one of the fundamental pillars. The court system is one of the fundamental pillars of our democracy. We improve the court system, we can improve our democracy. We weaken the court system, we weaken our democracy, Madam Speaker. Government respects the court, we strengthen our democracy. Government disrespects the court, we weaken our democracy. Madam Speaker, it was this same government who came to the Parliament here some parliaments ago and tried to rush the matter of the CCJ through Parliament in one sitting. They did it. And it was only because at that time we had a president, one of our outstanding luminaries in the judiciary in the Caribbean and indeed in the world, past president, Liverpool.
Now you know what the rules say about calling the names of the presidents and so on, don't you?
The past president.
Well, I am ruling that
Okay.
names such as these should be left out of your argument.
Okay. When the,
So move on, please.
the House, this same
Move
government,
on, please.
this same government rushed CCJ bill through the Parliament in one sitting many parliaments ago. It was only because the then president, in his wisdom, refused to sign the bill that they delayed a little bit, and now they're coming back to the House here with CCJ bill. So this just goes to show you, Madam Speaker, how much disregard and disrespect this government has for the people, the freedom of the people, the democracy that we all so cherish. Madam Speaker, we are here, one of the other pillars of our democracy that the court has a duty to interpret, Madam Speaker, is the question of free and fair elections. The court also has the duty.
You know you're going to start testing my patience. You are going to start testing my patience.
Madam Speaker, not testing your patience, with all respect to you, Madam Speaker, I intend to touch on some of the fundamental responsibilities that this court, CCJ, is going to have to face.
Can the member put off his phone while he's speaking so we don't have this type of interruption? That would be very helpful.
Dear Madam Speaker, in bringing forth the CCJ, as a member of Parliament, it is my duty to enlighten the citizens of Dominica to the extent that I can within the limited time of some of the implications of the CCJ and some of the fundamental duties and responsibilities which this CCJ is going to be charged with. One of those fundamental duties, Madam Speaker, I said, is to protect press freedom. Another one, Madam Speaker, is to interpret our rules and to ensure that free and fair elections are indeed taking place in our country, Madam Speaker. Another one is to interpret the actions in our Parliament, Madam Speaker, to ensure, Madam Speaker, that the rights of the majority and the rights of the minority are both protected, Madam Speaker. And indeed, when members feel that their rights are not being protected, this is the court they're going to have to go to, Madam Speaker. This is the court they're going to have to go to. So, Madam Speaker, when a government comes to you rushing to change the court system, and that government is showing such what you would call heavy resistance to putting the things in place to ensure free and fair elections. And I'm referring to things like taking actions like holding back money from the Electoral Commission for many years so that they could not go ahead with the cleaning of the list and the ID cards.
Member, please, tell me how holding back money from Electoral Commission is going to assist anybody in understanding what the CCJ is all about. Because you prefaced what you said with the fact that nobody seems to know. All the school children, the young people you speak to, they didn't know even what CCJ was. So tell me, how does that help them?
So, Madam Speaker, in relation to the financing of the CCJ, Madam Speaker, the financing of the CCJ has been done through a trust fund, and the minister himself claimed that the It will not be influenced by politicians. Here we are, Madam Speaker, seeing another fundamental pillar of our democracy being hijacked by politicians because the financing is in the hands of politicians, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I am saying that, taken from the example of the CCJ, this government, if it cares about democracy, Madam Speaker, would also come to this House, with mechanisms to take out the financing of the Electoral Commission and also the lower courts from the government and politicians and make that financing independent. Because indeed, while the CCJ is funded by a trust fund, the other courts down below depend on political decisions for their financing, Madam Speaker. This is very, very critical, because whether you have an excellent court at the top and the systems into that court are flawed, it means that the ordinary man who cannot afford to go to the top system continues to be denied justice, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, indeed, when you come to the higher courts, Madam Speaker, and you look at our court system today, and I'm going to make some comments here, Madam Speaker, they are far-reaching comments about our court system, Madam Speaker, in the case of Dominica, unfortunately, we have had some very significant failures. When it comes to our democracy, we have had some very significant failures from our court system, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I want to speak to the hearts and minds of our citizens who have sort of selected the legal profession as their profession, and to say to them that they have to do more. They have to do more to protect the integrity of our court system. Here we are, Madam Speaker, a bill being brought before the House by a government where our court system, not very long ago, allowed the leader of that government to withhold evidence that people know he has in order to determine whether our...
No, you know this member, I think you know better than that. I think you know better than that.
The Prime Minister has a passport.
You cannot criticize the court like this and judgments. You're not permitted under the rules to do so. I don't know why you don't read your rules, so you can know where you fall afoul of the rules. You cannot criticize the court system. I am interpreting what is... I am the member from Marigot. As I tell you already, one of these days you may be speaker and you will be charged with the responsibility to interpret the rules. For the time being, until events occur, I am charged with that responsibility, and I reserve the right to carry out that responsibility without your influence. Can you continue, please, bearing in mind what I have said?
Madam
Please.
Speaker, Madam Speaker,
I am very patient. I've counted to 100 already.
Madam Speaker, with due respect to you, Madam Speaker, Parliament has a duty to examine the institutions of democracy in this country, Madam Speaker, and to speak to it, and where necessary, make rules, amend constitutions to change and improve. Therefore, Madam Speaker, as a parliamentarian, I have a duty, Madam Speaker, to speak to aspects of our court system that are inadequate or have been failing, Madam Speaker.
Two things I have to say to this. You are right. You can generalize, but you're not permitted to particularize. Got that? Let's continue.
Madam Speaker, our court system has failed our democracy seriously on a number of cases, Madam Speaker. I need to support this. One of those cases was a matter dealing with
will not permit you to go into that. That is my ruling. You may challenge it how you see fit.
Okay,
Please cooperate.
It is the same court system, Madam Speaker, that ruled in the case of vacation of seats, Madam Speaker. Listen well, Madam Speaker, I'm not coming to you. There was a question before our court as to whether the vacation of seats of the member for Salisbury and the member for Marigot were done properly.
What can I do to get the member to understand?
Madam Speaker, this is within the rules. It is within the rules, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we get a ruling from our court that says to us, because the elections have taken place and the members won, then it no longer has to rule on the interpretation of that aspect of the Constitution, Madam Speaker. That is a major failure of our system. Because, Madam Speaker, the question of whether an action is taken in Parliament is a right action taken properly or not has two aspects to it. One, in relation to its impact on the member who is aggrieved, but most importantly, in relation to setting the precedence as to how we operate Parliament, how we interpret our Constitution, Madam Speaker. And clearly, Madam Speaker, it is only the court, Madam Speaker, that can tell us, Madam Speaker, when we take certain actions in Parliament, and they are challenged whether those actions are taken rightly or wrongly. So when our court comes with a judgment that because the elections have taken place and the members have won, it no longer is going to rule on this matter, Madam Speaker. This is a failure for our system. And we have to recognize the failure so we can correct them, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, similarly, Madam Speaker.
The member is not understanding that there are certain things that you do through a motion. And that, yes,
Certain things that
there are certain points that you wish to take as it regards to the judiciary, the president, other members, and so there are certain categories that you have to do through a motion, not through a debate.
But, Madam Speaker, the matter that's on the House of Debate, Madam Speaker, is a matter of amending the Constitution to change the court system, Madam Speaker. One has to speak to the functioning of the court system and the implications for changing this, Madam Speaker. And that is the reality. For example, Madam Speaker, in a matter of press freedom, when our court rules that in a case brought to it by the United Workers' Party in 2005, where DBS, for example, took money for broadcasting from United Workers' Party, then later on gave back the money to United Workers' Party and gave that space to another party, Madam Speaker, United Workers' Party goes to court. When the court rules that the matter of depriving the opposition of media time in this way is a matter that is serious enough to vitiate the elections. However, the Attorney General's name should have been included in the suit. Madam Speaker, you know, when you look at a judgment like this, it doesn't matter how technically correct this judgment might be, Madam Speaker, but one has to ask, what is the duty of the court? To be technically, especially when it comes to constitutional matters, to be technically correct or to serve the Constitution, to serve democracy, to serve free and fair elections, to serve freedom of the press, Madam Speaker. These are the fundamentals. And I mean to say, it hurts, Madam Speaker, when in this House I am being restricted from speaking on the fundamentals of our democracy, when a fundamental pillar, Madam Speaker, is being changed. Madam Speaker, it was only months afterwards the same court, Madam Speaker, ruled in a matter between the Port Authority, Madam Speaker, and the government, where the Port Authority, also statutory corporation like DBS, Madam Speaker, the union was suing the Port Authority and they included the Attorney General. That same court, Madam Speaker, ruled in that case a few months later that the Attorney General's name should not be included in the suit. So we have to understand we have serious weaknesses in our court system, Madam Speaker. I'm not blaming any person, Madam Speaker. We have a system to fix. We have a system to fix. And it's the legal luminaries and the members of Parliament who have to work together, Madam Speaker, with your corporation for us to fix it. And our people, the system is for us, the people. So therefore, the opinions of the people, the sentiments of the people, which they cannot express outside, When they express it to their parliamentarian, I have a duty to bring it to Parliament, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, it's very important. We are at a crossroads in Dominica now, in our democracy. We are at a crossroads. Press freedom is under threat. There's no reporter here who feels confident in reporting on matters that are critical of government, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the question of freedom of association, Madam Speaker, is under threat, Madam Speaker. There are so many people in Dominica who, when they come to speak...
You have 4 minutes left.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So many people in Dominica right now, they are so afraid of political victimization, Madam. When they come to speak, Madam Speaker, they have to watch to the left, watch to the left, watch to the right, and then shoo-shoo. And then shoo-shoo, Madam Speaker. You know, and these are the threats we face in our democracy. And I mean to say, to the extent that the government feels guilty, they can make noise. But the people are not blind. And, Madam Speaker, I'm even going to leave a couple of minutes on the table. I am saying to our people here in Dominica, Madam Speaker, our democracy is under serious threat. As we move forward with this Caribbean Court of Justice being our final appellate court, we have not been adequately consulted. This government here is on its last months. It's on its last months. On its last months in office. Why the haste? Why is it that the government cannot take this to the people in the forthcoming elections to vote on as well? If also this government is so confident that it's going to get 21 seats, then why is the rush? What is the rush? And the election is around the corner. The people speak at election time. I'm saying to the people of Dominica, we're at a crossroads in our democracy. And you can help our democracy by making a change of government now. We are at the crossroads in our democracy. Dominicans, you can help to safeguard our democracy by making a change of government now. The government has been there for 15 years. They've had a 3/4 majority in Parliament for the last 4.5 years. In their dying moments, they are coming and shove this CCJ down your throat. That is not a good sign. If you leave them in office, Dominica will end up with a dictatorship. If we leave Prime Minister Skerrit and his government in office, Dominica will end up with a dictatorship. People of Dominica,
you're being tedious and repetitive.
The decision is yours. Be guided. God bless you all. God bless you all.
Order, please. Order, please. The member.
God bless you all and thank you.
The member, and I'm letting other members know, the rule on tediousness and repetitiveness does not only apply to what you are saying, but also what other members have said. You must not be tediously repeating what other members have said, as well as yourself. Please bear that in mind. Is the member finished now? Because you have 1 minute left.
I yield a minute to you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you for your generosity.
You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, 13 years ago, the CCJ was established, and to date we have 4 of the CARICOM member states part of that CCJ. Now we have 15 members of the CARICOM states, so that would make it about 1/5 who are CARICOM members, who have acceded to the CCJ. We heard our own Prime Minister Skerrit telling the world that because he got an agreement from the British that there's no need for a referendum in Dominica. Now, I would submit that we have CARICOM, and it would be prudent for us to have a team approach, a CARICOM team membership approach in terms of the CCJ. So here goes Prime Minister Scarrett beating his chest. He's the first in the OECS to accede to the CCJ. Now I ask myself, you have Dr. Kenny Anthony, you have Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, experienced lawyers who have decided to go the route of consulting their people. That tells me there's a certain respect for the electorate. And in the case of Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, it came in the form of a referendum. In Dominica's case, it seems that there's no respect for the electorate. Where is the consultation? Now, you will have your chance. So in the case of Dr. Kenny Anthony and the 11 other member states, they do not mind being second or third in the OECS. You know, they don't mind being, you know, once to them, their priority is consultation. Now, Madam Speaker, a serious concern that we have on this side is the whole question of disclosure. Where the court must insist that litigants do not hide behind the doctrine of self-incrimination. So, Madam Speaker, what we would like to see, you will see the connection. I see you're wondering where I'm going.
Where I'm going is, I'm hearing you repeating what the other member was saying. Be careful about that. As I told you, the rule of tediousness and repetitiveness does not only apply while you are speaking and what you are saying, but also other members as well. If a member has made a case up in point, that would be repeating it as well. That rule applies there too.
So I'm saying that...
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
I don't want to hear you on a point of order. Please, let's just let the thing roll nicely. How about that?
So, Madam Speaker, I'm saying that... Can I continue, Madam?
Yes, yes.
Yes. I'm saying that where people in high offices are allowed to withhold evidence from the court, I think...
Madam Speaker, I must write down a point of order, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's very regrettable. It's regrettable, Madam Speaker.
So,
that
one have rights, and this one don't have?
The member...
The member, God be with you. Peace be with you.
Minister, please state what rule you're rising on. Point of order, that's a prerequisite to a point of order.
Continues to be repetitive,
Madam Speaker, he has to quote the order number.
In defiance to your instructions, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in defiance to your instructions, and I really don't think at this level we should allow this to persist, Madam.
Yes, sir.
It's an abuse of the process of the House.
Yes, sir.
I need you to tell me the rule.
And in addition to which,
the member, I need you to tell me the rule. The standing order.
Standing order rule 33, Madam Speaker.
Right. So let's go and see.
Seconding of motion, 33. Seconding of motion, what you did do? What you did do? Rule 33, seconding of motion.
No, it's not 33, no? Rule 33 is not applicable.
Seconding of motion.
Oh, 43. Okay. Okay. Yes. Okay, standing order 43. Yes. That is what I'm saying to the member. You can't use somebody else's argument as your own. You can just gloss over it and, you know, you can reinforce it, but then you move on.
Yes, Madam Speaker. We also have, as a matter of concern to us, the question of issues of justice delayed. For example, where matters of national importance, like the question of qualifications to participate in a national election, being in the court for 2 and 3 years without getting a result. So, Madam Speaker, I'm saying that justice delayed in that matter is something that we're concerned about. Now, another important thing that we're concerned about, Madam Speaker, is the question of where senior lawyers, or rather, Madam Speaker, where matters of attempted murder on senior lawyers and senior police officers are also delayed. This is of concern to us, Madam Speaker. Now, Madam Speaker, coming back to the question of disclosure just for 1 second, it cannot be that when the ordinary John Brown goes to the court, he is allowed to introduce evidence, but in the case of the high and mighty ministers of government, they are allowed to withhold evidence, for example, passports.
Madam Speaker, this is imputing improper motive, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
The member, the senator, Madam Speaker, cannot be allowed to come to the court and impute the judicial system.
Under what order is he
He's saying, Madam Speaker,
under what order is he writing?
that the court...
One moment, please. One moment, please. Will the member for Roseau Central contain himself? Please take your seat. I am dealing with one matter at a time. Please take your seat. Well, if you say yes, why aren't you seated? You see, you... One of the things the members here might want to address is to make more speakers so that, since there seems to be an idea that everybody can be a part-time speaker and have a say. I'm coming to the member, I'm addressing him, you rise.
You go to stand number 44, and you go to 5, and you go to 6, and you go to 8.
This is what I said,
Is imputing and promoting, and he's bringing the Supreme Court in a matter that is not a motion on the Supreme Court. And it is wrong for a senator, Madam Speaker, in this House to come and attack the judiciary. And the judiciary doesn't have the ability to respond and to clarify the matter. It is wrong, and they should not allow that. The House should never allow this to happen, Madam Speaker. And the rules of the House, the rule is clear.
Thank you. The member from Marigot has been here. He always likes to tell us for so many years, more than all of us. And so he should be aware of Standing Order 44, which is what I alluded to. I said that the conduct and the rule reads, the name of the president shall not be used to influence the House. And so I alluded to that just now. And further, when I was saying about the president and members of the House and judges, it clearly says, Standing Order 44.8, the conduct of the president, members of the House, or judges of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court shall not be raised except upon a substantive motion moved for that purpose. And I mentioned that to the member as well. Yes, and so the conduct of an individual who is ruling on issues, his conduct includes his behavior in ruling. That is how I am interpreting it, and as does the court. And it's not just about conduct as you think of as behavior.
Point of information.
No, I will not accept point of information. I will not accept point of information.
Madam, I need clarification on this, Madam Speaker.
Well, then you can see me in my chambers and take your seat, please. No, I am not going. Will the member please take his seat? I understand your motive. And I'm learning how the member is behaving. Will you please take your seat? Will you please take your seat? Okay? And so the member is aware. Continue. The member is aware of the rules. It's not a figment of my imagination as was suggested. There are rules. Okay? And so I'm asking members to adhere to the rules. Yes, please, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes on your three. I'll give you 3. Well, continue quickly because it's only 3.
Read that fast. You heard that? So, Madam Speaker, on the question of disclosure, what we would like to see is fairness across the board. No one, no institution, no power is above the law, Madam Speaker. So we would like to see fairness in terms of disclosure. Finally, Madam Speaker, we would like to see the day when the court deals with corrupt lawyers. It cannot be that in serious matters that senior lawyers don't even receive a slap on the wrist for serious breaches, Madam Speaker, and we are concerned about that. I believe, Madam Speaker, that if lawyers get away with corrupt practices, that's going to undermine the courts. In Dominica, Madam Speaker, we have evidence of senior counsels interfering with certain...
No,
I'm being general.
No, because I'll tell you why. The cadre of senior lawyers in Dominica is very small. And just one moment.
Yes.
I need to tell persons streaming, be careful. Be very, very careful. What is said in the House may be covered by privileges. What is said in the House and carried by the government media is also covered by privileges. But when it is carried by unauthorized streaming on the internet, those persons are on radio, they are not covered, and they can be sued for what is being said in the House, for carrying it. I've warned people about this over and over again. This business of streaming the House proceedings without the necessary privilege riding along with it is very serious and puts the streamers, if I can use that word, at risk. You are warned. You'll get your time, don't be afraid. I just needed to sound that word of warning because you said something there that has connotations that go well beyond certain things. Continue, and please be careful.
Madam Speaker, I think that's the most interruptions I've had ever, but that's okay. I think I'm getting my point across. But Madam Speaker, when finally, Madam Speaker,
I'm not making my life
when the foundation of our democracy, free and fair elections, is being hijacked by senior lawyers, Madam Speaker, I'm fearful that we're galloping to a dictatorship and a one-party state. Thank you very much.
Is that it?
Good morning, Madam Speaker. I rise to make my contribution on the matter before the House. Madam Speaker, as we have said on numerous occasions, we on that side, we are not against the CCJ. We have made it very clear that we are not against the CCJ. We see it as important. We see it as the Caribbean people standing up for themselves was Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we look at the principles, the ideals of the Caribbean Court of Justice. And we see, Madam Speaker, the mission, and I quote, to protect and promote the rule of law as a court of final appeal and as a guardian of the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas by guaranteeing accessibility, fairness, efficiency, and transparency, delivering clear and just decision in a timely manner. Madam Speaker, I am sure that the people of Dominica would like to see that happen in Dominica. Madam Speaker, we have had several experiences where these things, the ideals of the CCJ, we didn't see it happen in our jurisdiction. And that's why we are saying, why the rush? Why the lack of consultation with the people of Dominica? Why not together with the OECS bloc? And that is important, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, some will say they had consultation. But how successful were the consultation in the public interest? Were they in Salisbury, were they in Marigot? They were in some places and they were empty. Hardly had Dominicans coming to sit down and ask questions and learn from the experience and be part and parcel of the process. That is what we have been asking, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we know that Dominica and St. Kitts, they do not need a referendum to move to the CCJ. But we are saying in the spirit of the OECS Economic Union, moving together as a bloc. As recent as June 10, 2014, the former Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda asked for us to move together, the OECS region to move to the CCJ together. He even made a recommendation of having a referendum day. That in the best interest that we move together because we are part of a bloc, the OECS Economic Union, Madam Speaker. And it's important we moving forward as the region. And we have heard some of my colleagues make raise some of the concerns that we have in terms of delay of court proceedings. In case of, you have the matter in St. Kitts, Madam Speaker, the motion of no confidence. 2 years now. And that is a concern that a lot of regional leaders have raised, even in OECS jurisdiction, Madam Speaker. We have heard of the concern what transpired with Sir Brian Alleyne in 2007, when the leaders of the OECS unanimously have to give him support.
You need to go away from that one. You need to. Okay.
Why, Madam Speaker? Can I understand why?
Just move on, but just you remember the rule on questioning the whole system. You can't do that. That is what the
I was just raising a concern, Madam Speaker. I am not going into details, but I was just raising a concern of one of the matters that we have. Madam Speaker, is a
no, I have to ask the Prime Minister to.
Well, tell him long post again. Scary cool down. That's what you tell him. You say it quiet.
The deputy, the assistant deputy speaker has.
No, Madam Speaker, I made that comment in reference to a point highlighted by the Minister of Legal Affairs, and he made reference to the funding of the judges of the CCJ. And I was just showing the difference and how the CCJ is sound in terms of ensuring that no politician is involved in paying our judges. And it shows that there is transparency and accountability and they are free to execute their mandate. Madam Speaker, but we have that concern have been raised in the region on several occasions in the OECS jurisdiction, that there are some matters before the courts. And we have heard of the results and we have heard of the concerns raised around the region on these matters. But Madam Speaker, another concern that was raised by one of my colleagues, Madam Speaker, and about two prime ministers being lawyers, and they are taking the right route with the people to move forward. St. Lucia wrote to the Privy Council, and also there was a referendum in 2009 in St. Vincent. It was a referendum for other issues, but it was defeated. The moving to the CCJ was defeated. So these are genuine concerns that we're raising. We're in Parliament today, Madam Speaker, and we could come to Parliament as well to have legislative amendments to our laws to ensure that we can clean or re-register the voters of Dominica. That these recommendations have were made since 2000 in the elections report. That we can to make amendments to our laws to ensure that we register voters. Madam Speaker, these are issues in the region because you hear of the different election petitions going around the OECS region and CARICOM by extension. So if we can come to the OECS Economic Union talking about harmonizing our laws and making it free, the free movement of people, goods and services, and if we can clean up our backyard first, ensure the OECS region have everything in place, and we move as a bloc. Belize, Suriname, Barbados, Guyana. They move on their own. Right. No, I'm saying they're CARICOM, but they're individuals on it, but we are part of a bloc. And that is what I'm asking us to think of and let us move on in that direction. Madam Speaker, I want to speak to the Dominican public, to call on your representatives. Ask them why the rush. Why can't we wait, take our time, as I said earlier on, meet with them, get their support. Yes, it is a rush, because if we wanted to do several times in Parliament, Madam Speaker, and the people of Dominica needs to know what's going on, let us go to them. Let us get their support. They are stakeholders in the matter, Madam Speaker. It can affect them directly, Madam Speaker, and we as a country, we can do it together. Yes, the opposition is willing to work together, to go to the people and educate them. Let us do it as a team, because it's Dominica moving to the CCJ, Madam Speaker. And that is important to us as a party, Madam Speaker. This is a very serious move. And some of us on the other side want to take it lightly. And I am sure that some of us listened to Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves. I am sure we listened to him. I am sure that we listened to Dr. Kenny Anthony, Prime Minister of St. Vincent. Madam Speaker. And I bring in two players as well, Madam Speaker, just recently on the 10th. The former Prime Minister of Antigua. I am sure we have heard the concerns of leader of the opposition of St. Kitts and Nevis, Honorable Mark Brantley, and that issue that's going on in St. Kitts. These are genuine concerns. These are genuine concerns that the people of Dominica should have a chance to make a positive input as we move forward to the CCJ. Madam Speaker, I call it on my brothers and sisters on the other side. Yes, let us take that into consideration. Let us think of our people as we move forward. This is a serious move, Madam Speaker, and it can cause us some friends in the OECS as a region, brothers and sisters.
Madam Speaker, I rise to issue my contribution with respect to the bill before the House. I'm requesting of you that I be allowed to read part of my presentation. Thank you. Madam Speaker.
Just a minute. Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. You may.
Madam Speaker, this matter is a very serious matter and one that all of Dominica must take dearly. And I think that Dominica's decision as a nation and also, Madam Speaker, being part of a region to the link from the Privy Council should be considered, Madam Speaker, generally to be a step in the right direction. But, Madam Speaker, it is fair that we should examine the process that we used to get there. It is fair, Madam Speaker, to take into consideration the interests and none thereof of the players that these courts will affect. And the players I'm referring to, Madam Speaker, would have to do with the legislators, the legal fraternity, the Privy Council, and most of all, Madam Speaker, the larger group which will be affected, which is the people who all come under the Treaty of Chaguaramas. The legal fraternity and the Privy Council, Madam Speaker, they're having their day, and all is well. The legislators, they're having their day, and all is well. But what of the people? Are there concerns? Should the smaller group give some comfort to the larger group and speak to their interests? We need to remember, Madam Speaker, that the CCJ have been in discourse for a long while, but in 2001, when it was established among two major controversies. And the people were there and they were listening. One being the decision of the Privy Council that convicted prisoners on death row who were sentenced should, if the sentence was not executed within 5 years, that it should be commuted to life imprisonment. One of the other controversies which existed, Madam Speaker, was, and we can refer, Madam Speaker, with respect to the decision on the commuted sentence to life, we can refer to the Pratt Morgan versus the Jamaica government. The other matter, Madam Speaker, which was in controversy at the time, was a matter of the Observer publication, where the Privy Council versus the government of Antigua, where the Privy Council, Madam Speaker, instructed that a license should be issued to that company. At that point, Madam Speaker, the government, who all signatories to the Treaty of Chaguaramas, felt that the Privy Council had a lot of power and they were not comfortable. Madam Speaker, this is documented. And as a result, Madam Speaker, if these controversies existed around the time of the establishment of the Privy Council, of the establishment, Madam Speaker, of the CCJ, we are seeing that really the question was not justice, but the question was power. To be fair to the people, Madam Speaker, we ought to dispel, if it is a myth, that myth. If it is a reality, Madam Speaker, we should sought to give comfort to that negative taste in the mouth of the people. What are we thinking, Madam Speaker? Should a prisoner who have been sentenced for 10 years get up one morning to understand that the next week he will be hung? The people of Dominica need to be comforted that justice will be delivered by the courts, and I think that that is fair. I hope that this government can give this honorable house and the listening public some assurance that those matters were looked at and due diligence have been done as we move forward. Speaking of due diligence, Madam Speaker, it was as far back as 1949 that the judges of the Privy Council held that execution of appellants after such long period would amount to cruel and inhumane punishment. The judges, Madam Speaker, declared that any state wishing to retain capital punishment must ensure the execution follows swiftly and, of course, allow for the appeal XYZ. Madam Speaker, what is our belief today? We believe that this region, because of its lack of efficient judicial system, can meet this demand? That's a question, Madam Speaker, that I'm certain Dominicans are asking. Madam Speaker, I read a report of the Inter-American Development Bank of 1999 on judicial reform in the Caribbean. And it had a number of things to say. But on page 6, Madam Speaker, I wanted to know that. And it was referring to reform in the Caribbean. It says the problem facing the OECS are inherently related to the amount of cases backlogged and delayed. For criminal cases in the OECS, the wait is approximately 3 years to complete preliminary inquiries and 5 years for murder trial. Madam Speaker, that was concerned in 1999 by the Inter-American Development Bank. It went further, Madam Speaker, and it said in cases that the accused has to, in some cases, the accused has to wait 5 years in criminal matters from the time the process begins to judgment. It went further, Madam Speaker, and it said that the courts in the OECS, Madam Speaker, lack the necessary hardware to computerize the system. The court has inadequate statistics on key matters such as cases pending, and the facilities of storage for manual records are inadequate. Madam Speaker, if that exists then, the question is, what is the position now? Has the government done sufficient research to ensure that similar matters, similar situations will not take place within the CCJ? And it is fair, Madam Speaker, if that was done, it is fair to inform the general public that yes, it was done. Due diligence, Madam Speaker. With respect to financing, Madam Speaker, in light of the cost of operations and increased judgment awards, which will affect the cost of the operation of the court, what research was done, Madam Speaker, to satisfy ourselves that the $1 million could finance the court to perpetuity, Madam Speaker? 100 million, sorry. Madam Speaker, all we are saying is we are hoping that this was done and due diligence did take place, Madam Speaker, so that we can allay the fears of the general public, Madam Speaker. We look at the selection of judges, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, an examination of the composition of the Regional Legal Services Commission reveals that most of our people who will select the judges for the CCJ comes from the legal profession. Madam Speaker, that I think is a matter that would concern the public because, Madam Speaker, if we believe in the maxim that justice must not be done but must seem to be done, I think, Madam Speaker, that this is a major concern that should be addressed, and it will be fair, very fair, Madam Speaker, that the government will speak to the people about these matters. Madam Speaker, we are all satisfied that the High Courts and the Magistrates Court need to step up to the plate, Madam Speaker. They need to do better than they are doing, because if we can see improvement, we can expect much from the CCJ. The CCJ, Madam Speaker, as we're aware, have been assigned 2 jurisdictions. The original, I think we are all okay with that. And we have the appellate jurisdiction, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, having the history of legal judgments within the region, it is good reason, and maybe it would make some sense for Dominica to have looked at using the CCJ on criminal matters at this point in time, Madam Speaker, because it was all right, Madam Speaker, to have separated the appellate jurisdiction, Madam Speaker, and allow the CCJ to look at the cases on criminal matters. Madam Speaker, that was done when Canada moved from the Privy Council. They allowed the new court, Madam Speaker, to handle criminal matters in 1933 and the civil matters in 1949. In 2011, the Chief Minister of Bahamas stated their interest in processing a split appeal program. Trinidad in April of 2012, Madam Speaker, also indicated the interest to go in that direction. I'm thinking, Madam Speaker, it is reasonable for us to assume that they were looking for comfort within the CCJ so they could go full-fledged. I ask, Madam Speaker, that this government consider these positions, still consider having a split court appeal position for Dominica as we move forward on this very important matter. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Madam Speaker, borrowing a phrase from the new Senator Monell, I rise to make my contribution. Madam Speaker, I shall be speaking essentially in my capacity as the parliamentary representative of the people of Marigot and all the other people who I am aware subscribe to the concerns of the people of Marigot. The Honorable Attorney General, I heard, say to us last night, I think it was, that the activity, the action that we'll be engaging today represents a momentous occasion. Momentous. I would suggest that for it to be momentous, we have to be able to show that the people of Dominica are part of this, not in an airy-fairy way, but in a significant and fundamental way. That there has been people's involvement, serious people's involvement in this exercise, and importantly, concurrence of the people in this exercise. Now, they will tell us, as the Minister for Legal Affairs is telling the Attorney General now, that he was at Marigot, and I was there. Yes, there were 5 people, about 10 people there. 10 people there, and I was there, and that's why I can say that. And that is why I can say if that is a reflection of the involvement of the people that we are led to believe happened, then we are seriously fooling ourselves. Madam Speaker, I was there. So where is that concurrence? Madam Speaker, anything that happens in Marigot Village, I'm there. Madam Speaker, so that, Madam Speaker, 21 of us will represent this momentous occasion that we are talking about, or perhaps 18-3. Madam Speaker, I want to submit that the government, the Labour Party representatives, do not assume that because they split in this House based on the elected representatives 18-3, that reflects the wish and the will of the people. Because St. Vincent had a majority, a substantial majority. They went to the people with a referendum with respect to the change, the amendment of the Constitution. Let me speak, please. I understand that one of the items in a set of items was the referendum. But the point is, the people did not go ahead with the proposal. So we must not assume that because we have an 18-3 situation in the House, that reflects the wish of the people. It might very well be so, but it has not been tested. In Scotland, where the people of Scotland are involved in a momentous decision, they are bringing the people on board and there's a referendum. Is that not so, Mr. Attorney General? Yes, indeed it is so. The people of the Falklands, although it is clear that they would wish to be associated with the British as opposed to the Argentinians, they are going through the process of a referendum. What, Madam Speaker, through you, members, is the extent of the knowledge of the people of this country with respect to the CCJ? Are we comfortable with it, notwithstanding the excursions that we have had around the country, as we have been told by the Minister for Legal Affairs? Are we comfortable, honestly comfortable, that the people of this country, Mr. A.G., will you give me a chance to speak? I'm an elected member of this House, speaking on behalf of the people who elected me. Give me a chance to speak. I must speak. I know. You are not a minister, although you associate yourself with a minister. You're not a minister. Madam Speaker, there is provision for the introduction of the bill and for there to be a 90-day period between the introduction of the bill and the second and third reading. What is the purpose of that period? What was the purpose of that period? I would submit that the purpose of that period is for there to have been intense discussion, education, and involvement of the people. In that 90-day period, the bill is introduced. So people reckon, oh boy, we're serious. Bill introduced. So that 90-day period was for there to have been intense, in-depth, widespread consultation, education, involvement of the people. That wasn't done. We put it in there, we introduced it, and then ila kitela. It is there, leave it there. And then after 30 days, 90 days, we'll see we have the concurrence of the people. Madam Speaker, the Constitution provides for a referendum, but in a situation where there is an agreement with the United Kingdom, then it is not necessary to have a referendum. This parliament is being asked, therefore, to go ahead with the delinking from the Privy Council. On the basis, we are told that there is an agreement. This parliament, which has to take the decision. That is members of that side, elected members of that side, elected members of this side. Where is the agreement? Mr. Minister for Legal Affairs, you are asking us on the basis of there being an agreement with the British to delink from the Privy Council. Where is the agreement? I'm suggesting that that agreement should be subject of public scrutiny, public information, and indeed, if nothing else, that this parliament, the members of this parliament who are supposed to be taken to be involved in the decision, should have access and should have sight of that agreement. Where is it? It's not been brought here. That is the contempt for this parliament that we are saying. Where is it, Mr. Attorney General, through you, Madam Speaker? Where is it, Mr. Minister of Legal Affairs? Taking the people for granted. Contempt. I say so, so it must be so. I am suggesting that this agreement should be brought before the parliament. I'm suggesting further that when the matter goes to the president for assent, unless he sees and he's told that the members of this parliament will give a sight of this agreement, that he does not assent to the bill. And I would suggest, yes, I would suggest, it has happened before. It has happened before. The former president, the past president, not this president, I can't talk about the president, in that way. The president did not assent to the bill when it was presented to him. After we had advised, after we on this side had advised that it was not appropriate to have submitted that bill on the very question of the link in the CCJ, the Privy Council. On that very matter, we advised that we were not at the stage where we should have submitted this matter to the President for assent. We were ignored because we don't know anything, and then the President said, no, I will not assent, I agree with the President. And we had the problem of embarrassing the Speaker, who had to go and now write the President and write us and tell us, well, the matter that we sent to the President for assent, he didn't assent, so we're back to square one. I do not want that to happen to her again. So make sure, before the day is out, that we bring the agreement before this Parliament and read it. Not because I've asked for it for you to say, stay there, Chemal Papa, you will not see it. Do what is right. Do what is right. And bring it before the Parliament. It has been said already that we are part of the OECS Economic Union and so many other organizations that we in Dominica are part of. We know them, UOB, CARICOM, Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, even cricket. It messed us up yesterday, but we're going to, take revenge on them at the Windsor Park. I am being asked whether I'll be coming to the stadium. Yes, I will be there. I might even have an official role because I've been involved in cricket administration and playing, unlike you, Mr. Ian Douglas, sorry. Yes, I'll be there. And I may even be involved in an official role, okay? And I will be there, notwithstanding you took up our material that we had there for the construction of the stadium and throw it in the sea. We will be there. I'll be there, yes. So we are part of
You're back on track now, are you?
I'm coming back. I like how you asked me that day, nice and dandy. No big thing, nice and dandy. So we are part of all these regional organizations. The question is, what is the rationale for going alone? Please tell us. I know you'll give me my blows, you'll give all of us our blows and so on when you come to speak, but just tell us, don't speak to me, speak to the people. Explain to them. Yes, Mr. Minister for Legal Affairs, make your note. Remind yourself that you need to speak to the rationale for going alone. Because we boast, we pat ourselves on the back so many times that we are part of the regional effort. We are essentially, fundamentally and importantly part of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. So it is important for us to explain why it is that we have to go alone at this stage. Yes, we can say that Barbados has gone and Belize has gone, and which is the other one? Yes, Suriname has gone. But all these are countries that are not part of any grouping with respect to their court system. We agree? So we are part of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court. We would have expected that, based on our boasted leadership capabilities, we would have been able to persuade our brothers in the OECS, in the OECS Supreme Court, let us go together. Madam Speaker, there are suspicions as to why we want to go alone and rush it. Skepticism by Dominicans. And one of the concerns they have is whether we think our leadership believes that they will get easier and more favorable decisions from the CCJ. I said at the beginning, I'm speaking on behalf of the people who sent me here, and I'm speaking based on what I'm hearing. I don't want to be hypocritical.
Just one moment, please. While it is true that the people who sent you here asked you to speak on their behalf, you are the one who is speaking for them, and it is you who I have to remind of the rules, not the people out there. So please bear that in mind. In spite of you being sent by these people, I still have to ensure that you are speaking subject to the rules.
Speak, Madam Speaker, based on the rules. I cannot guarantee that as to what will happen in terms of the
rulings too, eh?
Rulings. That is what I'm going to come to now. I am going to be speaking about rulings, about judgments, not about judges. I'll be speaking about judgments, not about judges. So on the basis, Madam Speaker, one of the bases for that skepticism, Madam Speaker, for that suspicion, has to do with when the people listen to the judgments of a court or a Caribbean court. And I want to say that I'm one who's on public record as saying that we must have confidence in our courts. Notwithstanding how we feel about judgments, in the end, we must respect our courts' decisions. But respecting our courts' decisions does not mean that we cannot have and express a difference with respect to the court's decisions. So when you have a situation, Madam Speaker, where a judgment tells us that based on the acts, based on the law, for instance, the Election Petition Act, the Evidence Act, which says, Madam Speaker, for instance, that at the trial of an election petition, a judge has the same powers of a judge at the trial of a civil proceeding. This includes the power on behalf of a petitioner to compel a respondent to give evidence for a petitioner. And you get a judgment is where, while I accept that this is a correct interpretation of the law, I cannot agree with the section. I cannot agree that the section was intended to be used in effect to shift the burden of proof from an election petitioner onto a respondent by enabling a petitioner who lacks sufficient evidence to prove the allegations in his petition.
I will stop you here. I will stop you here for two reasons. Judgments do not occur in a vacuum. They are written by judges. So whereas you seem to be saying that you are attacking a judgment, effectively you are attacking the judge who wrote the judgment. Well, now I'll go further and I'll tell you that your argument that you're making here now is a repetition of two other members. So that is where you're becoming tedious and repetitive, and I'm so ruling. The member, please defer to my ruling.
Madam Speaker,
I know it's unusual and it's hard for you.
What a judge has to do is to interpret the law and apply the law. That is the judge. That is what interpret it.
I'm really getting a hard time from you members.
Yeah. Madam Speaker, is there anything you want me to say so that I can do what
you've spoken for quite a while, and I have to interject when you fall afoul of the rules or when I perceive that you do.
So, Madam Speaker, the concerns of the people have to do with where they see that a law, that an interpretation of the law is done, and when it comes to applying that interpreted law, we say no. The position as the courts have ruled is that it's the duty of the judge, of the court rather, to having interpreted the law, to apply the law.
But this is how you come to be testing the conduct. Yes, but you can't do it. This is the rule. You know, I don't understand. I'm reading from the same rules that were given to you all.
Madam Speaker.
And you know, the member for Roseau.
I'm excusing myself before
I think so. Good idea. Very good idea. Yes, thank you very much.
Madam Speaker.
Because, you know, this is making my work.
I've gone from that now, you know. I'll leave that for you.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
In another forum.
Yes,
Madam
indeed.
Speaker, because in this forum I cannot get justice. So I will go to the CCJ to get justice. I will go to the Caribbean Court of Justice to get justice. Madam Speaker, the other reason why people are skeptical is because, and let me just say, Madam Speaker, this thing about the Caribbean Court of Justice, I think justice is the central part of it. Justice. We cannot hook on to technicalities and shift justice aside. That is where we must focus. Not hook on to technicalities and shift justice aside. We look into the Caribbean Court of Justice for justice. Madam Speaker, the other thing that is of concern to the people, and let us not be hypocritical about it again, they are concerned about some of the people who will get onto that CCG. And I want to say, I understand the question of the provision for the payment of judges through the trust fund arrangement. I have looked at the procedure for appointing judges and so on. But all procedures have their ways. You have little things where something can slip in, inadvertently perhaps sometimes and so on. They are concerned about some of the persons who might get onto the CCG. And the extent to which those persons, based on their record, based on how they've seen them operate in this little jurisdiction, the extent to which they will be able to be part of that dispensation of justice if they get on the CCG. Because when they see people who are infecting our institutions, like the IPO, like the Parliament, like the Electoral Commission, Madam Speaker, there is a senior counsel. There is a senior counsel who was on radio 2 weeks ago saying that the IPO should be disbanded. That the IPO should be disbanded. Oh God, you want to talk to me?
You said something about the judiciary going to the CCJ, and you imputed in a sense improper motive that they should not get there.
Who's that? CCJ?
When you were saying the people are concerned about who is going to end up on the CCJ. Yes. Okay, so be careful when you make these comments. Good.
But I'm reflecting the views of the people. That's what they say.
And as I tell you, you have to reflect the views of the people within the rules. There are other fora where you can reflect the views of the people at large without someone here to tell you, well, there are rules.
Yeah. So, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
So, Madam Speaker.
Indeed.
So, Madam Speaker, is it possible for me to say that because the Prime Minister, when he was talking about half and half, he said that it was on the news. So it was all right for him to say about who he referred to as half and half. So can I refer to what was on the news? What was on the media the other day? What was on the media? And that a senior counsel was on the media 2 Saturdays ago saying that the IPO should be disbanded.
And what is wrong with that? I said so too. I said so too.
Oh, you hear that? You all heard that the speaker saying that as far as she's concerned, the IPO should be disbanded, and that lady could go on the CCJ. If she goes on the CCJ and a matter for the CCJ or the IPO getting before her on the CCJ.
You should be grateful that my age prevents me from getting on the CCJ.
You heard that again? You heard that again? Because if my age did not prevent me, and I got there, it's a big Sunday. That's my interpretation. My Lord, my God. CCJ, we're in serious difficulty. But mouth open, Tory jump out. Madam Speaker, as I said, we have heard about the mechanisms put in place to ensure the independence of the judges and the non-political nature of the court and so on. I believe the CCJ should, because in the circumstances, it will be the final court. But I believe the CCJ should have the opportunity to intervene when lower courts make decisions which, when they've read the judgment, even depending on the circumstance, where there has not been an appeal from poor people like me who don't have the money and so on, for them to intervene and say, look, this judgment is egregious, and I'm going to review it. So that where the amendment, where the Constitution provides for an appeal to the CCJ, in cases where the question involved in the appeal is one that by reason of its great general or public import or otherwise ought to be submitted to the Caribbean Court of Justice and such other cases as may be prescribed by Parliament. where there are decisions that are so obviously egregious, so obviously out of sync, the CCJ probably should have the ability to initiate an intervention. And in that regard, section of this bill, section 8, subsection 6, should probably be repealed. That is the one that makes this section 106 subject to the sections 22.4 and 47 of the Constitution. Madam Speaker, as we go to the CCJ, we need to commit ourselves to do better than we are doing now. A chain is as strong as its weakest link. It is these courts, the courts of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, that will be feeding into the CCJ. And we've heard and we know of the saying, justice delayed is justice denied. It cannot be right for, on a matter as important as who is eligible to lead this country, that matter should take a matter coming up in the future. I'm not talking about what happened in the past. If a matter comes up in the future, if there's the decision as to whether I should lead the country again, yes. And it is felt that I'm too old, then that matter should not take 3 years before the court to decide that. It cannot be right. It cannot be right. Do it right away. Once they say, this is James, a matter of 2 months and we're gone. And we've seen, Madam Speaker, and I have to speak to practical examples. We have seen the member for, the Minister of Agriculture has said here on their side that I'm undermining Linda. He said to me the other day that he understands that the people of Margaret are calling for me because they don't want Linda. I said to him, boy, that's better than nobody calling for Matthew to stay. Nobody calling for Matthew to see. All they're asking for is Unica. All they're asking for is Unica. Yes, okay? So we've had the situation too of the IPO, a matter before the IPO. One side could have gotten the court to deal with what they wanted to deal with expeditiously. And once they got that there was an injunction so that member could not serve, or he could only serve half. He could only serve half. Once they got that decision, then the whole question before the court remained there for 3 or so years. That cannot be right. These are the things that cause skepticism. And we want to ask the lawyers, the Bar Association, to step on the gas. And not only the Bar Association, but other persons and institutions and entities who have influence in this regard, to get the Legal Profession Act operationalized. Mr. Minister for Legal Affairs, I'm sure you'll agree with me. Mr. Attorney General, I'm sure you'll agree with me. That it's necessary, it's desirable that we get the Legal Profession Act in place. As we're going, look at how fast we say we're going to CCJ. Yeah? Get the Legal Profession Act operationalized. Mr. Leader of the House. Well, no, let me forget that. We will ensure, working with the relevant bodies and authorities, that we will come to the Parliament very early in our term after the next election to get the Legal Profession Act in operation. Madam Speaker, I heard in a news item this morning, a news item which I called the Camelized News. The Camelized News. That is news which has opinion in it, it has question in it, it has commentary in it, it has everything in it. So you don't hear a news item which says that the minister for, the member for Portsmouth said that he's going to give over to Cabral. We heard a news item saying the member for Portsmouth, Ian Douglas, who for the last 15 years has done yeoman service for the people of Portsmouth, is now prepared to consider Cabral as his replacement because they're cousins and so all kind of thing like that. You not hear a straight news either. You have what is what you call Kamalized news. Kamalized news, that is what you have. And it is prepared by somebody and given to somebody else to read. So I heard on that Kamalized news item this morning that the opposition has said they're not going to support or they do not support the idea of the CCJ. I can say our position is that the CCJ...
You have 3 minutes left.
The CCJ will be the final court of appeal. What we are honestly and sincerely asking is that in order to really make it truly a momentous occasion, that the people be allowed to be more involved, and that we can go to the CCJ knowing that in a real and practical way the people have had their say. And as I close in the next 2.5 minutes I want to repeat that the chain...
Sorry, I made a mistake. 1 minute.
God, well, your maths is bad, right?
My maths is terrible, I will admit.
Yes. That in the minutes and the 3/4 of a minute I have, that a chain is as strong as its weakest link. Everything begins from here. We can't just get to CCJ. It begins from here. And if the Director of Public Prosecution's office is not properly served, properly equipped, so that it can discharge its responsibilities, discharge its functions, then CCJ almost dead in the water. So please, we see a lot of vehicles going around. What do you call it? What do you call it? GA vehicles going around. Make one available. 2 available. The one for who? Mervyn Paul? Yeah, Reggie would like that. Make it available to the DPP's office so that they can do what they have to do, so that we don't get the embarrassment of the poor judge having to be under pressure in her court. And more importantly, we don't get the problem of justice being delayed, because justice will be denied and the Caribbean Court of Justice will be not what it is supposed to be. Thank you very much,
Madam Speaker, I wish to lend my support to the bill before this House and to say that as a citizen of this country and as a Member of Parliament for the Bakers constituency and as the leader of the Dominican Labour Party, I support Dominica's accession to the Caribbean Court of Justice as its final court. Madam Speaker, I listened to the opposition, and you have to listen to hear what you have to say, first of all, and to see if you can learn something from it and take note of it. It will be interesting, Madam Speaker, to ask this opposition who makes up the Privy Council.
Some white men.
Who appoints the Privy Council, the judges who serve on the Privy Council? Who provides the financing for the Privy Council to operate? And how many of our citizens know the answers to these questions? In the United Kingdom, as I understand it, and the Attorney General is here, he can speak to this, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom appoints the judges. A politician. And in this jurisdiction, Madam Speaker, they go and they will appoint people who are of the same political persuasion. So you will not get Prime Minister Cameron appointing a conservative, a Labour man on the panel of judges. In the United States of America, Supreme Court judges at the federal and state level are all appointed by the President of the United States of America. And they select people, first of all, who may have the academic qualifications, yes, but who also support their ideological and philosophical and political views. And we believe that we as Caribbean people we as Caribbean people are not sufficiently knowledgeable to conduct our own affairs, that we come into the parliament as an opposition and imputing all sorts of motives, innuendo, misinformation. Madam Speaker, at the OECS Supreme Court level, the law provides, it is a law, and it has always been the case, that in respect to the Chief Justice, there must be unanimous decision of the heads of government. This is not a law that I brought to the Parliament of Dominica. This law existed before I was born. But the moment the Chief Justice is appointed, he or she, and in this case, it is a lady who is the Chief Justice, appoints all the judges with no consultation whatsoever on her own deliberate judgment and action. And she simply writes me, like she writes all heads of government in the OECS, a letter to us inform us, out of courtesy. And I can tell you, Madam Speaker, I have been Prime Minister for 10 years going, and we have been in office for 14 years going. I can say to you, at no time have we interfered with the administration of justice in this country. At no time. At the Caribbean Court of Justice level, I believe about 75% of the heads of government must agree, so there is no unanimous decision required. And once 75% of the heads of government agree on the appointment of the Chief Justice, that's it. The Chief Justice goes about appointing judges he deems suitably qualified to be judges. And Madam Speaker, when you look at the qualifications and the background of these judges who sit on the CCJ, it is unfortunate and sad that an opposition will come to the parliament and criticize these judges, question people like Sir Dennis Byron, a man who has been recognized internationally as one of the best judges we have in the world, who has worked in Africa, and who the Privy Council itself looked to for guidance. Look, the Privy Council looks to Sir Dennis Byron, our Chief Justice at the Caribbean Court of Justice, for guidance. For guidance. And we have an opposition coming here and imputing also motives on distinguished, Madam Speaker, Mr. Saunders, Madam Speaker, Justice Saunders of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, one of the most respected jurists you will have anywhere on the face of the world. And it is sad that people who look like us, we have difficulty with. It is sad. It is sad. It is sad, Madam Speaker. It is sad, Madam Speaker. And they talk about we must follow St. Lucia and so on. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia and the government of St. Lucia through the Governor General in the Parliament of St. Lucia have said they are following the lead of Dominica in the move towards recognize the Caribbean Court of Justice. It is not me who said that. And the government of St. Lucia needed to have an advisement in respect to the provisions of the Constitution. And the advisement came out to say that there was a drafting error, and therefore the provision of the Constitution is similar to Dominica. They must first write to the Privy Council, to the to the British government, to say and to get agreement to the link. And I can say to you here that I have sent a draft copy of the letter which I sent to the British government to Prime Minister Kenny Anthony, so that he would send that same letter to the UK to follow Dominica's lead. And the only reason why St. Kitts and Nevis have not gone to the parliament because they have political challenges within the parliament of St. Kitts and Nevis. The Prime Minister of Grenada has said that he, based on the provisions of the Constitution which requires a referendum, he is ready and prepared to go towards the process of a referendum to recognize the court. In respect to my comrade Prime Minister of St. Vincent and Grenadines, there was much more in the referendum. There were many things, including the determination of the recognition of the Queen as head of state of St. Vincent and Grenadines, and changing of the political complexion within St. Vincent and Grenadines. So, Madam Speaker, on this issue of consultation, and they're suggesting that we should go through a referendum, and they keep making reference to the Constitution. But the Constitution sets out a process which the Parliament must follow in delinking from the Privy Council. And it says that the Dominica government shall write to the British government in seeking its agreement. If we receive the agreement of the British government, then we come to the Parliament and they must have 2/3 majority to amend the Constitution. It says failure to get an agreement from the British government, we'll have to go through a referendum. That's what our Constitution says. Yes, Madam Speaker. And the issue of consultation, if you go in the Hansard of the Parliament, Madam Speaker, way back 2002, we started the consultation with the American people. We've had more consultation on the CCJ than any other thing in the history of Dominica. All over Dominica. And more recently, we had this well-respected lawyer, Mr. Alexis, coming to Dominica to speak about the CCJ. And you should see how the UWPIs were in front there, hoping that Mr. Alexis would say something negative about the CCJ. And they left about this. But you are the UWP, Mr. James. You are the whole of the UWP. I mean, it's awesome, man. You are UWP. All of it. So that's, I mean, but you are the one-man party, you know. Which Lennox that, man? You the man? Lennox? You the man? You know that? I know that. But Madam Speaker, we believe that our accession to the CCJ in its appellate jurisdiction would cause access to justice to be cheaper and more affordable for every citizen of Dominica. If you go to the records of the Privy Council, how many ordinary Dominican citizens can afford or could have afforded to go to the Privy Council to hear a matter? Governments, Madam Speaker, governments and people who have the means of doing. And some people who have the means, they don't bother to go at all. Because there's all sorts of rules you have to follow to gain access to the Privy Council. And with the recognition of the Caribbean Court of Justice, it means that the ordinary man in Fine Grass, in Marigot, over gutter, Sam's gutter, Madam Speaker, Breezy Hill, like Broken Boy and his people there, all of these people will have access, all of them will have access to the CCJ. And for all our lifetime as an independent territory, Madam Speaker, these people would never have had access to the Privy Council. And more so, the Privy Council have said publicly that you Caribbean people are loitering on the steps of the Privy Council. Go and create your own court. You have sufficiently trained and qualified people in the Caribbean to have your own court. We do not have time for the Caribbean anymore. They have said so. It is in the records of the House of Lords. It is in the records of the public domain. That's what they have said to us. So if the person who is offering a service to us is saying, gentlemen, I am fed up with you, I have enough work to do in the UK, go and find a court. What do you do? What do you do? As leaders in the Caribbean, we came together in consultation with the people of the Caribbean and created the Caribbean Court of Justice. And they're saying to us here in the opposition, Madam Speaker, that we should wait. They say, Madam Speaker, we should wait. But it will be the same opposition if everybody had gone and would be last cataract, Madam Speaker, then they will say, oh, Dominica always last. Why is Kerry waiting for? Is there something he's hiding? Is there something that they want to do? This and that, Madam Speaker. Because we are leaders now, as we have been leaders in many other areas in the Caribbean, Madam Speaker. They have a problem with that. But if we are elected to lead, we must lead. And we are elected to lead not only Dominica, but indeed the Caribbean. And that is why today, Madam Speaker, we could have a Dominican at the head of CARICOM. And that is why today we can have a Dominican as the head of power, because we went out and lead, Madam Speaker. Lead. Madam Speaker, we have no political or governmental responsibility in the administration and the selection of judges at the CCJ. No. So I'm not going to get involved in that. But if we are saying the senator from Lapland, Madam Speaker, was in Black Power. I see comrade, Brother O, Madam Speaker, there, who's part of that process. I mean, I would want to think that the senator would be here. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Finally, one of the last vestiges of colonialism we've got rid of. But no, Madam Speaker. No, Madam Speaker. That will not be done. Because they want to politicize every single thing in the country. A matter like that, we should come together and say, yes, we support it. These are the concerns here and so on, but we support it. But they have not said categorically. As a matter of fact, when you listen to them, you can deduce that they do not support it. You understand, Madam Speaker? So, we're here to take a decision to cause every working class Dominican, every ordinary Dominican, to have better and unfettered access to justice, Madam Speaker. To have justice and for their cases to be heard by the most respected judges we have anywhere in the world, Madam Speaker. So when they come here and talk about interference and also innuendos, Madam Speaker, we should go back to who appoints the panel of judges on the Privy Council. Go back to who appoints the federal judges, the judges at the federal Supreme Court and the state Supreme Court. One man, Madam Speaker. One man, Madam Speaker. The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and the President of the United States of America. And all of those appointments, every single man-jack, Madam Speaker, is done on political lines. Political lines. But a matter goes to the Supreme Court, and just recently, Madam Speaker, they ruled against the President. Just this week, they ruled against the President. They ruled against the President, Madam Speaker. If you bring something against me that has no merit before the courts, what do you expect, Madam Speaker? You accuse me of something, you say you have all your evidence, Madam Speaker, then go to court with all your bundle of evidence. You are the most expensive lawyer in the Caribbean. The most expensive lawyer in the Caribbean. You, the Workers' Party. You know. So, you said you had all the evidence. Bring the evidence to court. But anyway, but had I known we had to show passport in Parliament, I would have got mine. But I didn't know that. I mean, so Madam Speaker, if there's a new requirement, at the next sit, Madam Speaker, I shall bring my passport to the Parliament. But Madam Speaker, French passport. Moi, je parle pour le français, mais pas pour je suis dominicain. You see Dominica? I am Dominican. Are you? Madam Speaker, I mean, I was born in Vickers, Madam Speaker. I went to school there, Madam Speaker. I live there, Madam Speaker. Everything there, Madam Speaker. Everything. So, Madam Speaker, this, in my mind, Madam Speaker, if we're allowing alcohol in the Parliament, we should have a bottle of champagne here to toast to the country and to toast to the citizen of Dominica. I mean, I sat here, Madam Speaker, very quietly. I never interrupted, Madam Speaker. I respected everybody. I sat there quietly. I listened to everybody, Madam Speaker. And I'm excited, Madam Speaker, but I am a little bit sad. I am seriously saddened, Madam Speaker, because I understand politics and election here, we can fight each other and so on. But a matter of such serious importance, we cannot bring that down to a Q95 type discussion. It cannot be. It should not be, Madam Speaker. It ought not to have been. This matter is too serious to the people of Dominica, the administration of justice in our country, to treat it that way. Everything for the member for Roseau Central is a joke. I mean, whoever appointed you, whoever appointed you as a jester of the Parliament. I see you as a member of Parliament, but you have self-appointed yourself as a jester of the Parliament. That's wrong, Mr. Come on, member for Roseau Central. But, Madam Speaker, these guys are looking for a platform. They started a marathon as if it was a...
Honorable Prime Minister, guys is not parliamentary.
But you see, I saw custom with these guys themselves. But Madam Speaker,
and here, the members.
All right. So, honorable members on this. Madam Speaker, $55,000 and not $1. If only thousands that you have raised, you have helped one poor Dominican. Not one. Not one. Not one. Not one. Not one. Not one single mother you've helped. Not one single mother you've helped. Madam Speaker, not help. Raising money for yourselves to pay off your mortgages and so forth. That's what you're doing. Ian will give you what he has, $2 this week, $10 next, Madam Speaker. That's what it is. But Madam Speaker, and I'm not gonna get Madam Speaker involved in all of these other side shows that they have spoken about electoral commission and so forth. Because the records will show, and let me educate the Dominican public that the Constitution provides for there to be 5 members of the Electoral Commission. A chairman appointed by His Excellency the President on his own deliberate judgment. So he doesn't have to consult anybody. 2 members appointed by His Excellency the President on the advice of the leader of the opposition. And 2 members appointed by His Excellency the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. And my understanding, Madam Speaker, is that every single decision that has been taken by the Commission has been unanimous. Has been unanimous. And they come, Madam Speaker, and saying to the public and giving the public impression that it is the government reps on the Commission who run in the Commission, when every single decision of the Commission has been unanimous, which means the 2 members appointed by the Workers' Party have agreed with the submission of the Commission.
Okay, now, member, I wish you to move on, please.
Madam Speaker, and I will say that all of the resources which the Commission have asked of the Cabinet and the Minister of Finance, we have made it available to them. in respect to amendments to the laws of the country in respect to voting, the Commission contracted a private legal consultant to review the legislation and to make recommendations to the Commission. That process, that contract is still ongoing. That contract is still ongoing. Once I understand the consultant's work is completed, that submission will be made to the Electoral Commission. I find it strange, Madam Speaker, that the opposition on one side of the mouth, they speak about independence of this and independence of that. They speak about the Constitution and they speak about the law. But they want me as Prime Minister, and they want the Cabinet of Dominica to get involved in matters which we have no legal jurisdiction over. I cannot go and dictate to the Commission. As a matter of fact, Madam Speaker, I do not write to the Commission directly. When I want to write to the Commission, I write it through His Excellency the President. We stay very clear. As a matter of fact, Madam Speaker, we made it clear and we agreed with the Commission that we will not use the Aegis chambers to review the law. They went and they got an independent person. Of course, he's my comrade. Yes, he's my comrade, Madam Speaker. And I am proud to have a person as a friend and a legal advisor, Alec Lawrence. Because when Alec Lawrence was in private practice, you used to call him, and your age is sitting down there, and you calling Alec to give you legal opinion in the cabinet. And today Alec is the worst thing in Dominica. You call Alec, and your age will be shocked to see Alex in the cabinet right next to you. And you say, Mr. Lawrence, what's your view on this matter? And the AG is sitting down there. And Mr. Lawrence, Alec Lawrence, SC, state scholar, Madam Speaker, one of the brightest men in the Caribbean, Madam Speaker. No doubt. So, when he was in government, Alec was the best thing available. Consulted Alec Lawrence on everything. But Mr. James has a hatred towards Alec Lawrence. For what? By your utterances, by the utterances of the Workers' Party. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that I support Dominica's move to recognize the CCJ, and I am happy to note that based on discussions at the OECS and based on public pronouncements by my colleague Prime Ministers within the OECS, that they will follow the lead of Dominica and recognize the Caribbean Court of Justice as its final court. I believe it is important for all the countries to so do, because it will mean that our people, whom we have been elected to serve and to lead, that their interest is squarely taken care of by this government, this parliament, in saying that the time when we do not have access to the Privy Council, we will not have access to the Caribbean Court of Justice. That we'll have the opportunity to come and sit here in Dominica, so that somebody from Penville who wants to go to the final court do not have to go to Trinidad. The court will come here and meet him, so all he has to pay is his bus fare from Penville to Roseau, rather than his air ticket and his lawyer's air ticket to the UK to fight the case and to fight for justice. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I am very, very proud to be the leader of this country at this historic time, where the Labour Party again is leading the way in this country, has been a party that has a vision, that has a plan for this country, and every time we have been given an opportunity to lead this country, whether in the 50s, whether in the 60s, whether in the 70s, and whether now in the first and the second decade of the 21st century, we have led admirably, and we have led always with the interests of the people at heart and at the center of what we do. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that the House be suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.
Seconded, Madam Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that this Honorable House be suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This Honorable House stands suspended until 3 p.m. this afternoon.
Thank you, Brother Philogen, and of course the chairperson of the board and board members.
At this time, we would like to call on to the Honorable Prime Minister Skerrit to address us this evening.
Hello, good night. How are you? I'm happy to be here. I came to Stock Farm on Saturday, and as a result of my visiting Stock Farm on Saturday, I am back here on Wednesday evening, and I met with some young men, and we're engaging ourselves in issues both national and local. And I decided to come here so we can engage ourselves in further discussions. So I'm very happy to be here this evening. Let me first of all recognize the presence of Honorable Julius Timothy, the Member of Parliament for Roseau North.
At this time,
are also eyewitnesses to the bizarre environment of ocean ridges. Deposits sulfide and strange forms of life that cling to the warm waters around deep-sea vents like these. In the North Atlantic, the mid-ocean ridge rises above sea level, dividing the island nation of Iceland along a major plate boundary. These faults form the dividing line between the west-moving North American plate on the left and the east-moving Eurasian plate on the right. Each day, the Rift Valley stretches, the plates diverge further, and the Atlantic Ocean widens, all at the rate of a growing